Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here. Today we're going to be reviewing the novel version of The Pirate Planet, which is a Doctor Who story I am quite fond of. It's my favorite story of season 16, and it's a lot of Douglas Adams being amazing. I love Douglas Adams' style of humor. I really click with it. One of the reasons why I'm also a big fan of City of Death and Shada. This was actually sent to me by one of my subscribers as a piece of fan mail, Simon Minsher. I want to say thank you, Simon. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to getting to it, and I thoroughly enjoyed my read of it. Especially since the book doesn't just pull from the broadcast version of the story, but the author, James Goss, actually got access to other drafts of the story and added them in, because the story in some ways is even grander, whereas it had to be edited down into broadcast length for 4 episodes. A lot of people said that it was a wild ride that they somehow had to make work in a broadcast format for 4 episodes. Because Douglas Adams really was that kind of person who just let his imagination run wild, and I love that. And some things are small, and some things are major. Like, I love the fact that I'm trying to remember what they're called in the episode, the TV broadcast, the Mediites, or the Medites, or whatever they're called, the psychic people. In this book, they're just called the Mourners, which makes more sense, especially in the context of the story, and why they mourn, who they mourn, what they mourn, and where they get their powers. You know, it's really neat that their powers come from the essence and energy of the dead planets that this, vampire planet has basically destroyed. And that's pretty cool, and that's why they mourn. They can sense the life force dying in those planets. That's really, really neat. I like that. It changes some things drastically, like in the cliffhanger for episode 3 when the Doctor falls off the ledge and we realize it's not actually the Doctor, it's a projection of the Doctor. In the novel, it's actually the Doctor, and there's this long bit about him falling, some of which is really amusing. At one point he forgot he was supposed to be screaming. He had to remind himself to start screaming again. And there's a whole scene of Romana having to activate the TARDIS to catch him, kind of like how Matt Smith had to catch River Song in the TARDIS a couple times when she was falling. It's basically like that. She had to activate the TARDIS to catch him. And then he backs up in time a little bit to where he reappears right after he fell off the bridge. So it fits with what happened in the episode, and you could even headcanon that to what happened in the episode, but it just makes it more interesting, and it's more drawn out and expanded on. Some of the dialogue is a little more expanded on. And some things are described differently, like the way the novel describes the captain. He doesn't look quite like he does in the episode. Like, he has a beard, for example, and there's more of him that's robotic, less human. It's not like a half and half thing like the episode. He's mostly robotic. And he looks a bit of a monstrosity, like he was cobbled together by somebody who didn't really know what they were doing, like a very badly done Frankenstein, just trapped in a body of metal. It does a really good job of describing that, to where, as I was reading the book, it became less of me picturing the events of the TV episode and more of me creating my own visual novel in my head, especially for the captain. By the end of it, I had a very different look for him in my head than what was in the episode. And it was really good at describing him to where I could come up with it. Although he still had his booming voice, by the sky demon and the moons of madness, I'll place your bones, Mr. Fibuli. I love the captain. He still had that voice, because I love that voice. I absolutely love that voice. And of course, it's nice to see Mr. Fibuli expanded upon. He's a very frantic man in the novel, which he is in the episode, but definitely in the novel. And he's a guy that doesn't get much of a breather. He's constantly thinking he could die any second. Another thing I like about the book is it does a really good job of describing the captain's bird, because that is one of the weaker points of the episode, is that the bird is not very impressive. It's not that intimidating. Whereas in the novel, the way it's described as being more like an actual bird. You know, it can fly, it can move, kind of like the metallic bird in, the Infinite Quest, the Infinity Quest, the animated David Tennant story. The bird that's in that's kind of how I was picturing the captain's bird in this, or more like, kind of like Tallyhawk from Silverhawks. Much more mobile and deadly. The book really gets across just how deadly this creature is, and I can shoot the laser beams from its eyes. Even Canine gets some amusing parts in this. There's one point when he lands out of an air car upside down and has to trick a guard into shooting around it to right it back up. Canine gets some fun lines in this. The Doctor is very much still the Doctor. It's easy for me to picture Tom Baker doing what he's doing in this. It has some really amusing bits, and I put my glasses here somewhere. I'm going to read an excerpt from you, just to kind of give you an idea. Because I like that novels can sometimes show you what a character is thinking, and that might not come across in the TV broadcast. Let's find page 145. Here we go. This is right when the Doctor meets the Captain for the first time. A squadron of the Captain's guards rushed past the Doctor without noticing him. That, thought the Doctor, will never do. He'd had quite enough of this planet dismissing him. He grabbed a guard by the hand and shook it. Hello, I'm the Doctor. The guard stopped, blinked, and rushed on. Snubbed, the Doctor marched further onto the bridge and took it all in, and smiled. This was decidedly more like it. A crazed cyborg, a group of terrorized technicians, a frightened henchman, a nurse. Mental note, must win her over in case things go wrong and I end up being locked up and or sacrificed. Romana, looking at her most Romana. And joy of joys, a robot parrot. Home ground at last. Who are you? Yelled the swaggering cyborg, and the Doctor could have kissed him. Hello, I'm the Doctor. He ignored the Captain completely and descended on Mr. Fibuli. He was one of the most affable, genial, and charming. How can I help you today? The Captain emitted a roar which caused Mr. Fibuli to yelp, and the Doctor to turn on him with open arms. His face lit up with surprise, as though noticing the Captain for the first time. You must be the Captain, I expect. Delighted to meet you. Heard so much about what a splendid chap you are from your terrified population. I love that line. Heard so much about what a splendid chap you are from your terrified population. Now then, I see you've met my sister Romana. I expect you've been getting on like a house on fire. Lovely girl, brains of a goose. Cheery wave, Romana stuck her tongue out at him. Marvelous place you've got here. Gather you've been having a spot of trouble, and I am most certainly here to help. Seize him, thundered the Captain. To the Doctor's ears, of course, this was the equivalent of, I'll just pop the kettle on. Ah, such hospitality, he grinned. I'm underwhelmed. He happily let himself be seized. You can tell a lot about an adversary by the quality of their seizing. He made no attempt to resist, but just as he gave every appearance of being tightly grabbed, he easily freed a hand and casually flicked up a guard's lip and inspected his teeth. I'd have that gum seen to could turn nasty, you know. I love that. To the Doctor's ears, this was the equivalent of, I'll just put the kettle on. And I love that line, he happily let himself be seized. You can tell a lot about an adversary by the quality of their seizing. And the book is full of little moments like those very Douglas Adams lines that I just adore and always make me smile. Here's a smaller excerpt from a bit when the mourners and the Doctor are being attacked by the guards, and the mourners kind of do their mourner trick to the guards. Kill them all, shouted one of the guards, and the others agreed. They sprayed blaster fire throughout the cavern. And that would have been the end of that, only Prelix smiled, and it was a very slight smile and rather lame. The blast fell out of the air sadly. It really was the only way to describe it. It was as though all the beings suddenly realized the miserable futility of existence, sighed, and dashed themselves into the ground. I just love that, a gaze that can make laser beams depress. A psychic blast and gaze that can make laser beams depressed and just dash themselves into the ground. Because what's the point of it all, really? Laser beams. And there's a lot of that in here. It's still the same story, it's just expanded upon. It's got little more nuggets of dialogue here, some added lines. Again, all pulled from various incarnations of the script, since it had to be edited down, of course, to fit a broadcast schedule. There's even a little extra ending that ties the Black Guardian in. There's actually a couple points during the story, very briefly, where you really get a feel just for how even here the Black Guardian is a little bit influencing events, just a little bit. And then there's a little spot with him at the end, and then the Doctor and Romana go back into the TARDIS because the TARDIS took way more of a beating in the book than it did in the novel when it was trying to materialize around Earth right around the same time the Vampire Planet was to stop the Vampire Planet from doing it. The TARDIS console took a bit of a beating. So they had to go to a temporary console while the main one repaired itself. And it was like basically a garden outside. It was pretty cool. Nice to see that in there. And then at the end of the book, the author actually talks about all the work he did to build this, getting a hold of all of these different versions of the script that still existed, and combing through them and taking the best parts to write the novel. It was a really fun read. Again, it's neat. The similarities, the slight differences, and even the large differences, like the Doctor actually falling down the pit, and that being a whole thing in here instead of just a short cliffhanger in the TV broadcast. That was really neat to see. I kept expecting it to be a projection, and so when Romana actually rescued him and had him drop him off 2 or 3, a few minutes back in the past, I was like, oh, that's different. I like it. It fits the story. You can even headcanon that into the episode, which is pretty neat. And also the Queen lived a little longer. She didn't just get, disappeared by a laser blast. The laser blast actually made her stronger because she's energy. And she had to be defeated in a different way, which is really neat. So yeah, the book was amazing. I mean, I still love the TV broadcast, I do. One of the few Tom Baker stories with all of the location filming surviving on its original film elements. It's going to look glorious in Blu-ray. And I'll always enjoy going back to it. But I really like the novel a lot. Because it didn't take me long to kind of break away from just playing the episode in my head to creating a brand new visual novel in my head. Because they're always, the laser blast in the TV broadcast never look good. Because they're not really laser blasts. They're just these little bits of light with that weird pew, pew, pew sound. I never liked that. Pirate Planet needs some updated effects, really. So I was able to picture the actual laser blast and better sound effects in my head. I never liked the mourners, or whatever they're called in the TV story. Their look, their design, the pale faces never really worked for me. So I had better ones in my head when I was playing the episode that I liked better. So yeah, this was a fantastic read. I would definitely, if you like the Pirate Planet, or if you like Douglas Adams, I would recommend, if you could get a hold of a copy, to get a hold of a copy. It really does flesh the story out, and it changes some neat things, and it adds some fun lines. But again, the TV broadcast is still a fun watch. I'm looking forward to the next time I go through it again as well. So again, I want to thank Simon for sending this, because it really was neat to see this kind of from a different point of view and to get a new take on it. And it is really neat. You really get an idea of just how many diamonds rain down. Because at the beginning it talks about how everybody has umbrellas made of gold because diamonds and stuff just rain down on them. And they're like, ah. And it talks about how you can get killed by one falling on you. Like one guy got killed because one hit him on the head. So it's pretty neat. There's no limit on the imagination. So when you're reading a novel, you don't have to worry about, a BBC budget. So you can kind of expand it and do what you want with it. That's really neat. So I really appreciate Simon sending it to me. If there's anything you would like to send me, my P.O. Box is down in the description below. I always enjoy getting new things to look at and review. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. There's a link to that in the description below as well. Or if you just haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the like button. It's free and it helps me out. I'm definitely, I always enjoy growing the channel. I always enjoy growing the channel. So I appreciate everyone who watches. I want to say thank you to Stephen Crane, one of my top tier patrons. I appreciate his continued support, as I do the support of all of my patrons and the support of all of my subscribers. And I also have a link to my Amazon wish list down there as well, if there's anything on that you might want to send me, that you might want to see me review. Most importantly though, as always, thank you for watching.